about actual asexuality by an actual asexual. My name is Mag Piper, and as always, I will be your host. Happy Labor Day for those of you who celebrate. I'm enjoying an extra day with my mother before school starts up in earnest. For those of you who don't celebrate, it might just be an America thing. I've never looked up the history of the holiday. I hope you have a great Monday nonetheless. I actually have a few questions to answer today. Remember, you guys can hit me up via Twitter or email if you have any questions about asexuality. I'm also considering a Discord server, depending on the results of my poll on Twitter. I'll keep you updated. The first question, and probably the most important one right now, is do aspecs belong in the LGBTQIA+ community? The answer is absolutely. The A stands for asexual, aromantic, agender, etc. Sure, there are allies, but the A is for aspec first. We belong. We are questioned, belittled, demonized, and treated like we are lesser, just like the other members of the community. Some of us even by the other members of our community. Asexuality has been a thing since at least 1972, when the Asexual Manifesto was published. And although this isn't necessarily a podcast about aromanticism, I'm pretty sure that's been around for the same amount of time. In fact, there are some people who claim that there is evidence of asexuality and aromanticism as far back as 1644. I'll delve more into both that evidence and the Asexual Manifesto when I do the episodes on ace history, which is looking to be at least a two-parter at this point. Another question that kind of runs along the same lines is aspec only for asexuals? Nope. Aspec is an umbrella term for both the asexual spectrum and the aromantic spectrum. Aspec is literally A-spec, in which A is an abbreviation for either asexual or aromantic or both. That means, fellow asexuals, respect your aromantic fellows, and vice versa. We're all under the same umbrella, and all of us have to help each other to stay dry. A slightly more controversial question is whether antidepressants cause asexuality. I can say from experience that isn't the case. I've been on an antidepressant for almost 4 months now, and I am as asexual now as I was before. I've heard that one downside of antidepressants is a lower sex drive, but that doesn't have anything to do with asexuality. Sex drive does not equal sexual attraction. How many episodes have I said that in? At least 3, right? In other words, don't stop taking your prescribed meds in order to stop being asexual. It won't work. You don't need to stop being asexual. There's nothing wrong with you, and your antidepressants are helping. I don't think I would have started this podcast without mine, to be honest. One of my friends asked me a question about asexuality that I hadn't thought about before. He has bipolar disorder, which Merriam-Webster defines as a psychological disorder of mood, usually characterized by alternating episodes of depression and mania. It doesn't sound fun, and I commend my friend for dealing with it. Anyways, my friend said that when he's on one side of the mood swing, he doesn't experience sexual attraction at all, and when on the other, he experiences sexual attraction to someone he's close to. He said he didn't know if that made him less asexual. As far as I can tell, it doesn't. Asexual is an umbrella term. I really like umbrella terms. Can you guys tell? One term under that lovely umbrella is aceflux. I defined it in episode 2, but we'll pull that back out and dust it off for another run. Here is where I'd insert a drum roll sound if I knew how. We're back with my favorite segment of the podcast, Mag Defines. People who ID as aceflux can fluctuate between things on the asexual spectrum and things that aren't. I likened it to how I feel about specific candies last time. Sometimes aceflux people aren't sexually attracted to anyone, and sometimes they are. Simple. Another term under the umbrella is aspike, which sounds a bit more like my friend's situation. Also, the flag is badass. Aspike people usually don't feel sexual attraction, but sometimes they feel strong sexual attraction for short periods of time. I don't know if that necessarily counts when the spike is brought on by other psychological goings-on, but the flag is really cool. Really, really cool. It's like gray with a purple stripe and then pink spiky things, and that's just awesome. Onwards! I was asked for a few asexual role models, and my dears, I am willing to supply. The first is Yasmin Benoit. She is honestly really awesome. I follow her Twitter religiously. A young asexual woman who models and is active in the ace community? Sign me up. She does talks and things, and even made a really awesome video a while back that I watched and loved. If I manage to find it again, I'll post it on my Twitter because I loved it that much. Then, of course, we have David J., the founder of the Asexual Visibility and Education Network, one of the modern leaders of the asexual movement. We will be visiting David J. in the history podcast when I get around to it. Tim Gunn is next on the list, and honestly, I didn't know he existed until I started looking this up. So you go, Tim. According to an interview, he said that his asexuality was a large part of why he and his former boyfriend split up. If you don't know who Tim Gunn is, he's a fashion designer, or something like that. Something to do with fashion. Actually, most of the people on the rest of this list are people I didn't know much about until I started looking, but y'all might know them and take comfort in their stories. Edward Gorey is another. Apparently he wrote children's books that have been described as being sexless. They're children's books. When is there sex in the kids section of the library? Anyways, he did identify as asexual. Someone who has been recommended several times since I started Googling is Carrie Holm, who wrote a book called The Bone People with an asexual protagonist. It's on my reading list now, like I needed a taller to-be-read pile. Sometimes I hate that I can't put emojis in a podcast. Last but not least, and most surprising to me, is T.E. Lawrence. Lawrence was a British soldier on whose life Lawrence of Arabia was based. In some letters of his, published in Selected Letters of T.E. Lawrence, he mentioned several men and women who approached him with fervent messages of love, and then added, "I am now uncomfortable towards 6 more of the people I meet." If that isn't an asexual mood, I don't know what is. As an aside, I looked up the works of Edward Gorey in between writing the earlier bit on him and writing this, and I'm not sure why those are children's books. I remember now having had one at one point, but there were children eaten by tigers, if I remember correctly. I could not find the book I remember in his bibliography, but yikes. I might dig around in the family bookcase at some point and see if I'm not just imagining the book I think I remember. It was quite traumatizing as a child, now that I think about it. Anyways, this has been We Need Space. You can find me on Twitter at NeedSpacePod or email me at weneedspace.podcast@gmail.com. We Need Space produces a new episode every other Monday. If this is your first time with us, make sure to check out the previous episodes, including, but not limited to, a definition dump, an emotional mess, another emotional mess but scripted, and a short history lesson. I'd love to hear any and all feedback. I also have a Ko-fi page with the link in the description as well as my Twitter bio, but worry not if you can't donate. Even something like sharing this podcast with your friends is a great help to the cast and crew. Well, me. I am the cast and crew. Me and the squirrels in my pocket. The music I use is Mirror Mirror by Diamond Ortiz. You can find We Need Space on YouTube and SoundCloud every other week. This has been Mag Piper, and thank you so much.